This forecast is brought to you by me. For information on readings I offer, check out my website at manic.mercurian.net, or you can reach out to me directly at manic.mercurian@gmail.com, and all of that information, as usual, is in the description box below. Welcome to your astrological forecast for the week of Monday, January 9th through Sunday, January 15th, 2023. This week, I'm kind of just looking at the chart as a whole, and I just want to remind you of a couple themes we have continuing this week. So we still have Sun in Capricorn, Mercury's in Capricorn as well, Venus is in Aquarius, so we are in, still this early phase of winter for the Northern Hemisphere, still kind of mulling things over. Winter is sort of the last season in astrology, and it's about a dream time, sort of. It's about manifesting what will become the next cycle that starts with spring, with Aries in March and April. So yeah, right now we're more just thinking things over. We're dreaming, we're contemplating, and especially with Mercury retrograde in Capricorn, we're really kind of contemplating and rethinking our commitments, our obligations, how resources are allocated, as well as anything having to do with structure, so hierarchies, things like that. This is a great time to think over all of these things, and maybe reapproach these things as well. And speaking of having a different approach to our commitments and our ambitions, things of that nature. This week we do have Mars turning direct. I'm pretty stoked about that. Mars has been retrograde in Gemini since October 30th. I honestly thought it was longer, but I did check that today. And yeah, Mars retrograde, it's kind of a doozy. It only happens once every 2 years. So Mars has been retrograde since October 30th. It's been in Gemini since August. And I just feel like it's crazy that Mars can spend this much time in one sign. It's been in Gemini since August. So I'm excited that Mars is turning direct. Mars retrograde is a weird one because Mars is typically, it's so outward, it's so direct, it's energy that is so action oriented, and when you put that retrograde, all that action oriented energy gets sort of pent up, especially in Gemini. It's a kind of a weird sign to have Mars retrograde in. So I'm excited Mars will be turning direct this week. We can maybe have a little bit more energy, more action. We can behave, a little bit more directly. And this is just one more retrograde that's going to be ending. Little sneak peek here, but in the next week forecast, Mercury will be turning direct already. So, we'll have all the inner planets direct, most of the outer planets direct. So we're almost there. If you, are like most people, you don't like retrograde energy, just hang in there, you're almost there. But I would really encourage you to make the most of it now. If you do want to think things over, and if you want to maybe be open to doing things in a different way, then that's what retrograde energy is all about. It's really great for getting intuition or inspiration, things like that. This week we do have a third quarter moon as well. I know people don't tend to really watch the forecasts that don't have a full moon or maybe a new moon, but I don't know why, because quarter moons are very tangible. They're almost, I would say they're almost as tangible as a full moon. There's always action going on. It's definitely a time of change. So this third quarter moon in Libra will, bring a sort of crisis in consciousness, and kind of interesting to have that in Libra, which I think itself is sort of a crisis in consciousness anyway. On more general terms, the moon will be waning from Leo to Scorpio this week. Last week we had the Cancer full moon, so we're still coming off of that. Things are lessening in intensity. The moon is losing light since that full moon last week. Okay, so now for the day-by-day forecast. We started out Monday, January 9th with the moon in Leo. That's kind of fun, and I think it's nice because we really don't have a lot of planets in the fire signs. There's Jupiter in Aries. That's a pretty fun energy that we can enjoy for much of 2023, at least the first several months of the year. But other than that, not a whole lot of fire going on. So that cheerful, fun energy is somewhat lacking from the charts lately. But for this 2.5 day window here, we do have moon in Leo, so that adds a little bit of that kind of fun zest. Moon in Leo is such a fun, playful, childlike energy. So I think it's really nice to have a little bit of that fun, that spontaneity, and we're combining that with all these Capricorn and Aquarius energies, which are much more decisive and intentional and serious. So I think having this balance is nice because we can bring a little bit of fun and enthusiasm to our goals and plans. Goals and plans are what Capricorn and Aquarius are all about. So, you know, I think it's a nice mix. We do have one of my favorite aspects going on Monday. That would be, I'm curious if anyone knows what it is. I've talked about this before. It's Venus trining Mars. So Venus is at 8 degrees Aquarius. It's trining Mars today at 8 degrees Gemini. This is super fun because both Venus and Mars have to do with desire, pleasure, attraction, and when they aspect each other like this, things can get very romantic, very flirty, very fun, playful, sometimes sexual, things like that. And because these planets are in the air signs of Aquarius and Gemini, they're very they're showing that our pleasure, our desire, our attraction is very much having to do with each other. Other people, different kinds of people, different kinds of ideas as well. It's very intellectual and analytical. So I think that looks like a lot of fun, especially if you're an air sign. You can have, a lot of attraction, and others may find you more attractive. You may find other people more attractive and interesting, and you may have some kind of sexy encounters. Who knows? I don't know. But yeah, and for the rest of us as well, we can all experience this. I don't know, this kind of fun, easy attraction related energy. Remember though, Mars is still retrograde, and that's why I find this interesting because Mars is sort of preparing to station direct, but it hasn't yet. So some of this energy having to do with attraction and desire, especially if it's sexual or having to do with like ambitious energy, all of that is still kind of subdued. It's in the non-physical. It's ethereal. It's not really tangible. It could be fixated more on the past. So that part could be a little bit subdued. But still, this is a trine between Venus and Mars. Definitely a fun one. One of my favorite aspects for sure. Okay, so for Tuesday, January 10th, Moon does leave Leo and enter Virgo. This is nice. Again, remember, Moon is waning, it's losing light, and we've very much fully have come off that full moon from last week. And now the moon is stepping into a trine with the sun. I think technically it's a waning gibbous moon at this point, or around this point. So yeah, moon entering Virgo, that works super well with sun and Capricorn because they're both earth energies. They both have a lot in common. So although on Tuesday the moon is not yet trining the sun by aspect, it's at least trining the sun by sign, and it's getting close to a trine with Mercury as well. So this is great. This is really stable, harmonious energy. Moon trining the sun is typically a stable, harmonious energy, but especially because they're in earth signs, this is the most stable element, so it's very grounded, very earthy. Those of you with strong earth in your charts may feel like you're kind of in the spotlight and you're in your element right now because both the luminaries are agreeing with you. They're aligning with what you are. And for the rest of us, we can enjoy earthy themes. This would be a great day for, I don't know, being very practical, getting organized, or planning something. Both Virgo and Capricorn love planning and, I don't know, thinking about the future, whether it be short-term plans or long-term plans. They love planning things, and they love getting work done. These are very productive signs as well. So that's kind of the focus for Tuesday. Pretty straightforward. I feel like the earth signs are pretty straightforward to talk about. So that's what I have for Tuesday. Next, going to Wednesday, January 11th. Moon continues through Virgo. We get that exact trine with Mercury today, so that's really beautiful. Moon represents the kind of feelings, and Mercury represents the thoughts, sort of. So when those are in alignment, that's pretty nice, I think. Again, it's centered around productivity, planning, being very grounded, stable, things like that. So that's kind of nice. And Moon is not yet trining the sun, but it's getting closer, so we're building that like really harmonious, stable, grounded energy. That's really really nice for Wednesday. We do have one aspect going on, so that's Mercury. It will reach 12 degrees Capricorn today, and it will square Chiron. So I feel like Chiron energies are so awkward, at least with Chiron and Aries, where it's been since 2018. We are very sensitive with Chiron in Aries. And when we involve a square like this, especially a square from Capricorn, because I feel like, I believe Capricorn Aries squares are particularly difficult because neither energy will budge. Both of these energies of Capricorn and Aries are so stubborn, and they very much have their intention, their goal, their vision that they have, and they're very independent. That's what they want. They're not going to budge on that. So when you have these two energies clash like this, Mercury and Capricorn is wanting to be realistic. Let's be practical and let's focus on kind of the big picture, like the long term, goals and plans, things like that. But Chiron and Aries is saying like, no, I don't really care about any of that. Let's focus more on the subjective. I have a truth. I have a story I need to tell. I have, pain probably. And Mercury and Capricorn's like, shut up. Who cares about your pain? Like, we are here to get stuff done. Do you know what I mean? So these energies are clashing. A different way of analyzing this aspect would be to say Chiron and Aries represents the individual, an individual cause, like a grassroots movement, a minority, or whoever is the underdog. And Mercury and Capricorn represents the top-down authority figure, whoever's been in charge, historically, or the government, the father figure, whatever, as above so below. We can see this in many aspects of our society as well as our personal lives, but this could represent some kind of uprising or protest. I could see that being kind of likely. It's interesting though, we have to consider Mercury is retrograde for this aspect, so this could have to do with going back. There was something that happened in the past, some kind of trauma, some kind of wound that is being brought up now, basically. So I'll let you just kind of ponder that, I guess. Okay, that's what I have for Wednesday, so let's continue on. For Thursday, January 12th, Mars turns direct. I'm just going to throw that out there because I'm excited about that. It's no secret I have many placements in Gemini, so Mars retrograde in Gemini has been a personal kind of big one for me, but this has been big for all of us. Mars is an inner planet, so it's pretty noticeable when these things go retrograde. So now the Mars energy is back online. I know Mars is a malefic, so maybe it's nice having Mars retrograde, just kind of turning the volume down on that angsty, like irritable energy. I guess that's what I would like to think about Mars retrograde. But really, I feel like we need that Mars energy. We need that energy to get things done. We need that energy to speak or really do anything directly, without that Mars energy, or I guess technically I should say without Mars energy retrograde, with it, kind of subtle or backward focused. I think it's just harder to move forward and move in a direct manner, if that makes sense. And because Mars is in retrograde or in Gemini, this has especially affected speech, I think, and the way we interact with one another. I think all of that sort of becomes confused, delayed, drawn out, can be more passive or passive aggressive, with Mars retrograde. So now Mars is back online, direct, moving forward, so we can move forward ourselves as well. Today we finally get that exact trine between the moon and the sun. Looks like in the morning Eastern Standard Time. So again, that's really beautiful. It's a peak, stable, harmonious type of energy. And this is something that most people, regardless of your astrology, will enjoy the trine between the moon and the sun. Moon will actually leave Virgo and enter Libra today. So as soon as Moon enters Libra, that is a different dynamic. Libra squares Capricorn by sign. So So then, the energy will become more contentious now, and we will prepare for this sort of, what's called a crisis in consciousness, or, um, you know, well, we'll talk more about that when we get there. But, starting, looks like in the evening, Eastern Standard Time, um, more and more there's going to be this urge for change, less of a stable energy. Anyway, so otherwise for Thursday, we do have one aspect, and it's with Chiron again. This one looks much more beautiful, though. We have Venus at 12 degrees Aquarius, making a sextile to Chiron at 12 degrees Aries. Okay, this is beautiful because Venus and Chiron are cooperating here. Mercury, when Mercury squared Chiron, it's sort of like, the messenger god was not getting along, kind of maybe disagreeing with Chiron in a way. But now, the lovely Venus is coming along, and Venus is saying, we can be buddies, we can work together. We're on different pages right now. Venus and Aquarius, Chiron and Aries, those are very different energies, but they're similar enough that they can complement each other. They can blend together a little bit. And I think I think Venus energy is exactly what Chiron and Aries needs. Chiron and Aries since 2018 represents a part of us all that has been demanding respect and has been very irritable and is tired of the BS. I don't know what the BS is. It's something that's been going on for a long time. Chiron and Aries represents this energy saying, we're done. We've had it. So now that's why I'm saying it's kind of nice to have, this love and beauty energy. Venus is making a sextile. Venus and Aquarius could be representing something having to do with technology, or this could also represent authority figures as well. But there's some kind of cooperation with the underdog, or with whoever is sharing their story, whoever is demanding to be heard. It looks like someone is hearing on some level. Aquarius could also represent like the greater public as a whole. Could represent a lot of things, but there's some kind of cooperation. There's some kind of it looks like the environment is suitable for a conversation to be had, whether that be between two individuals or maybe two groups or organizations. Whoever is demanding respect, it looks like may get that respect. They may have not gotten that earlier in the week, may have been much more contentious, but now things are maybe a little bit more relaxed with this sextile from Venus. Okay, for Friday, January 13th, Moon continues through Libra. We're getting closer to the third quarter moon, not quite yet, but Moon does square Mercury. So yeah, we can already feel, a little bit of contention, a little bit of restlessness. It's not necessarily bad. It can feel unpleasant, but it's not necessarily bad. It's just that this energy is starting to be more focused on change, a need for change, changing something. This happens every 2 weeks. We get a quarter moon every 2 weeks. We get a third quarter moon every month. So none of this is a super big deal, but these things just kind of push us to make change, basically. Okay, besides that, we have Sun sextile like Neptune, so Sun at 23 degrees Capricorn, making a sextile to Neptune at 23 degrees Pisces. This is nice. Pisces, Capricorn sextiles are interesting because I think at first glance, Pisces and Capricorn seem so dramatically different. How could you possibly combine, Pisces, which has everything to do with fantasy and escapism, and Capricorn, which is so realistic and so, cynical and practical and always based in reality? But these actually blend together fairly easily. I think both sort of have in common an ability to have a vision. Pisces has the emotional intuition and that kind of wisdom, and then Capricorn has the very practical, very physical type of wisdom. So combining both of those, these are sort of the wisest signs in a way, at least on an abstract, on paper type of level. So Sun sextile Neptune, it's a great energy for having some kind of intuition, especially on something having to do with like the big picture or the far future, envisioning a goal or something, or getting very spiritual as well, connecting with the collective consciousness and things like that. If you wanted to engage in some kind of spiritual activity, but especially doing it from a very kind of grounded, realistic, type of mentality, then this would be a great aspect for that. Okay, and then for Saturday, January 14th, we finally get that third quarter moon in Libra. Sun is at 24 degrees Capricorn, so the third quarter moon will be at 24 degrees Libra. Third quarter moons they're a little bit different than first quarter moons because although both represent a time where we need to make change, both are very they have a lot in common. They're very similar. Under both of these, we get really riled up. We get antsy. We get stressed, anxious. But it's an excellent time for making change. The difference between a first quarter moon and a third quarter moon, though, is this one, the third quarter moon, is more mental or philosophical in nature. A lot of it is physical as well. There's a lot of need for physical change. There's a lot of physical activity at this time. But a lot of this change is centered around a shift in thinking, a shift in perception, things like that. It gets very psychological. So if you wanted to make some kind of change, whether it be, a change in your own perception, a change in your mentality, or maybe just literally changing something, physically, this would be an excellent time to do that, especially if it's having to do with Libra type things. So like relationships, for example, social relationships, one-on-one partnerships, things like that. Libra also has a lot to do with aesthetics, how are you enjoying yourself in life? Like, what are your pleasures? If you need to make some kind of change surrounding any of that, this would be an excellent time to do that. Also, we can look at the themes that are shared by Sun in Capricorn and Moon in Libra. So both Capricorn and Libra are very professional signs. They, are very, they have a lot to do with being aware of how you are presenting yourself, how you are representing yourself with other people and things like that, making sure you have the right impression, and making sure that you are acting according to your goals and your intentions. I think both Capricorn and Libra are very intentional. Sometimes Libra can be a little bit off the cuff, but both typically work with intention, I think. So this could be a great time for changing things like that as well, changing how you're presenting yourself, maybe improving that in some way or customizing it more for your situation, things like that. But yeah, on a more general level, I always say this energy could stress you out, but if you utilize this to make some kind of change, you won't be as stressed. If you try to just relax and do nothing, then that's when this is going to really stress you out. It just makes some kind of change today if you can. Okay, other than that, we have one aspect. I keep saying that every day this week. One aspect going on, so that would be Venus at 14 degrees Aquarius. It makes a square to Uranus at 14 degrees Taurus. This looks interesting. It looks a little bit potentially troublesome for finances, the economy, things like that. I only say that because Uranus in Taurus represents this complete changeover with our economy that's happening during Uranus's time in Taurus from 2018 to 2026. So we're still in the midst of that, and occasionally when we get a planet aspecting Uranus like this, it indicates kind of a bump, like a little kind of like a little earthquake or a little tremor in regard to these changes to our finances. And this would definitely be one of them, especially because Venus has a lot to do with money and pleasure in general, and it's a great planet for I think it's one of the planets that has the most to do with money and the economy. So having Venus square Uranus like this could indicate a major kind of change or upheaval with finances. It could also indicate changes with resources. So new resources could be valued. Old resources that were valued before may not be. Things like that. Venus in Aquarius also could have a lot to do with social trends or online activity, issues with technology, and maybe something in those areas is changing how money works, how the resources are allocated, things like that. Okay, one more thing about that too. Venus, besides having to do with money, it also has a lot to do with relationships. So So this could indicate a lot of change with relationships as well. Sudden change, sudden unpredicted change. Um, I would say this more has to do with relationships like with your community though, rather than like personal relationships so much. Although we do have that first quarter, or excuse me, the third quarter moon in Libra, so that's kind of indicating change with relationships as well. So kind of interesting. Kind of interesting. We have two squares between an air planet and an Earth planet on the same day. Very, very interesting. Okay, so lastly for Sunday, January 15th, Moon does leave Libra and enters Scorpio today. So, again, this is now a kind of a nicer energy, at least in terms of, it's a little bit more stable, more peaceful. That's what we humans tend to enjoy more. So we don't have to make change like we do during a third quarter moon. We can just kind of chill a little bit. Moon and Scorpio, Scorpio's a much more similar energy to Capricorn. They have a lot in common. And so Moon is stepping into a sextile with the Sun. It's not really close to that aspect yet, since the Sun is nearing the end of Capricorn at this point. But at least by sign, these energies blend together very well. So this is a more stable energy, and both Scorpio and Capricorn have to do with being ambitious. These are go-getter signs. They're very inwardly confident, I would say, and very goal-oriented, very ambitious. So that's what the energy is for Sunday. I do like that we're having this. I mean, it's not really a sextile between the Sun and the Moon, but at least by sign, I feel like the sextile itself is kind of a Sunday energy, kind of relaxed. You know what I mean? So that's nice. Although this does look like a somewhat ambitious chart for a Sunday, so we may be, I don't know, thinking a lot about our week ahead, things like that today. Oh, okay. I wanted to mention this. So this is kind of funky. We have a T square going on. It's a pretty minor one because it's not exact, and the moon is the focal point, or the I forget the word, the point, the apex of this T square. So it's between Pluto, Lilith, and the moon. And many people say you shouldn't even really bother looking at aspects for Lilith, because Lilith isn't a planet; it's a an imaginary point. A point kind of imagined by humans, if that makes sense. But I still want to just throw this out there anyway. I thought it was kind of interesting. Moon, right as it enters Scorpio, or well, technically just before, it squares Pluto, and both of them are squaring and opposing a Lilith. So I just had to point that out there. I guess I won't interpret it, just because I don't know if it's astrologically sound to look at Lilith aspects. Maybe you can let me know your opinion on that if you are a seasoned astrologer and you know about things like that. I would love to hear your opinion. But yeah, otherwise, I mean, it's just the moon squaring Pluto, I guess, kind of bringing some deep, dark kind of vibes. But moon aspects are so brief. These, it wouldn't really last more than maybe several hours at the very most, I would say, before moon enters Scorpio. But then again, moon in Scorpio is a similar energy anyway, kind of bringing in those deep and complex vibes anyway, especially combining that with Sun and Capricorn, which is kind of a deep sign as well. But anyway, that's enough rambling for me. So that's what I have for you for this week. I know I actually managed to do a somewhat short forecast for once, so that's good. I try to be concise if I can. Next week we have Mercury turning direct. I know a lot of you will be excited about that. I actually am, for sure. As much as I say about trying to, well, not just trying, but as much as I talk about utilizing Mercury retrograde to the best of our ability, I, like most people, was born with Mercury direct, so it is a more familiar energy for me as well. So that's something to look forward to. Besides that, we also have Sun entering Aquarius next week. We have a new moon in Aquarius right after that. So that really shows we're suddenly very much shifting to Aquarius, kind of forgetting about Capricorn for the most part. Mercury will still be there, but with Sun and Moon in Aquarius and that new moon in Aquarius, we're really kicking off these Aquarian themes and kicking off this middle third of winter in the northern hemisphere. And then besides that, we have Uranus turning direct as well. So Mars direct this week, Mercury and Uranus direct next week. I think that means all the planets are direct. Yeah, I'm looking at, I'm obviously looking at this chart now, and all the planets are direct. I think this kind of happens at the beginning of the year. The last few years, we tend to have all the planets direct. So that's exciting. That means we're very much moving into the future very directly. It's not about mulling things over or processing the past so much. It's more about plunging ahead. Let's pioneer this. Let's go into the future for sure. Okay, so that's what I have for you this week. I hope that information helps you. And yeah, hit me up if you want a reading. I'm prioritizing this channel and the readings and all of that more. I am just a regular person. It may surprise you that I'm not making millions from this channel, but it's true. So, I do have other forms of income that unfortunately I have to prioritize over this stuff. But, that is gradually, slowly changing. I am taking this stuff more seriously and putting more time into it. So yeah, if you did want a reading or if you want to leave a donation with me, any of that helps, and I very sincerely appreciate that. Okay, but yeah, have a good week, and I'll see you next week.